Hi, welcome to MBTV. My name is Trey. Today we're going to be talking about Enneagram 2. Alright, so let's jump into it. First, we're going to start with the actual core type of the Enneagram 2, along with a misconception that many people have of Enneagram 2. Then we're going to go into the different wings of the type, the 2-wing 1 and the 2-wing 3. And then we're going to move on to each MBTI type, if it was a core type 1, what they would look like. Now, when I go over the core type 1 for each MBTI type, I'm not necessarily going to go into each type. I'm going to be going into dominant functions. However, I'm going to reference each type. I may start talking about dominant TE users and mention the ESTJ and mention the ENTJ and how they may differ in the way that they would operate as an individual. Alright, so the misconception we commonly have with type 2 is that they want to look like they are being helpful to others. And that is true because the type 2 is an image-oriented Enneagram type. However, what you have to understand is that the childhood wound of the Enneagram type 2, or the message that they got to make them a type 2, is a message that their own needs are selfish. So when we take into consideration that a type 2 wants to look like they're being helpful to somebody else, it's not only from this point of view that they want to look like they're helping somebody, but because they actually feel their own needs are selfish. However, there's a recognition that they need for helping people, and that's very important to the type 2. This is why the misconception of them looking good kind of comes along. It's not necessarily about looking good. Now for the 2-wing 3, it may be oriented towards more of that 3-like success. What I want you to understand is that a type 2 at its core is so focused on giving to others and ensuring that other people's needs are fulfilled that they often forget about their own personal needs. And so the issue that arises is that their focus is so on the outside world that they almost forget they have a self. We see this with a few types. We see this with Enneagram type 9 and a few others. But with the type 2, it's almost like they give so much that it's almost like they don't have an identity. So that's why the integration towards type 4 is really important, because they need to distinguish things about them that make them different, make them special. And this is something that type 4 is all about. It's about being special, about being unique. And so when it comes to the type 2 integrating to the type 4, it gives them a sense of self, things that differentiate them from other people because of the things that make them personally unique. So it's important to recognize that the 2 doesn't necessarily want to just look like they're helping somebody else. They want to be appreciated. And a lot of times it's because they feel that they don't even necessarily have their own needs to focus on. So that 4 would give them a sense of identity. And I think they would get a lot more recognition from that because of it. The type 4 is so focused on finding things about themselves that are different from other people that the 2 integrating to the 4 is important. So it's important to understand that the Enneagram type 2 isn't necessarily all focused on being recognized as someone that's helpful. Of course, they want their efforts to be recognized, and a lot of times when you give so much to other people, you can be recognized, but many times it isn't given back because other people don't feel that urge as much as the type 2 does. And because of that, they need a sense of identity from that. They need to integrate to type 4 to understand what makes them unique and different, and this can give them a lot more of the recognition that they need. It also supplements the lack of identity that they feel on a personal level because of all the personal needs that they're focusing on. They forget about themselves, and so the 4 gives them a sense of self in a way. Now that we understand the misconception, I'm going to go over to type 2 just a bit more. Like I said already, the type 2 really is just being extremely helpful to other people. If they have their own personal needs to fulfill and somebody else comes along and says, oh, I need this or I need that, the type 2 is very likely to sway in that direction and help the other person, forgetting about their own needs. This comes from people in their family or however they got the message. It really doesn't matter. They, as children, believed that their needs were selfish, and because of that message, they are now going to focus on everyone else's needs, and when they focus on their own, they're going to feel selfish for it. Now, recognizing this as a type 2 is also important because I have type 2 in my tri-type, and something that I recognize a lot is that when I'm helping other people, it does feel good. However, I devote a lot of time and I start to forget about all the responsibilities that I have. And so as a type 2, it's important to recognize that when someone else may feel upset because you aren't helping them, it's important not to let them get to you. It's important not to let that hurt you, because you do have your own personal needs. And yes, someone may get upset, but you can always make up with them. The issue that a lot of people have is that the type 2 gives so much that others just start to expect them to give. And when they don't give, it causes an issue, especially with type 2 parents. When it comes to type 2 parents, I know this is a common issue. When it comes to type 2 parents, they're going to be put in a situation where they want to help their kids and they want to help their family, and they're going to go out and do so much for them and seem like it's just normal to everybody. Like, I didn't just go do all that work to make you happy and to make your day comfortable. And they'll get very upset because they don't get recognized for that, but it's because they overgive and because they give so much attention to their family or whoever it is instead of recognizing their own needs. It is really important for a type 2 to first focus on what is important in their own life and in their needs. And then when they finish up, decide whether or not they actually want to relax or move on and help their family or anyone close to them. Because to be honest with you, they really do need to relax. Just imagine, once you have all your personal needs fulfilled, most people would take a break. Most people would relax, enjoy the rest of their day, just kind of leisurely enjoy their night. But a type 2 parent is very likely to keep going. And it's very upsetting to see. And so if you're a type 2 parent, I recommend giving yourself that extra time and then occasionally giving gifts saying, here's my time, I went and got you this, and they can really appreciate what you're doing. But if you do it too often, it's going to be expected, and that's a nightmare for a type 2. So now that we've covered that, I want to cover the difference between type 2 wing 1 and type 2 wing 3. So type 2 wing 1 is going to be crafting morals. However, the way they craft morals isn't necessarily going to be focused on the moralistic side. Just like a type 4 understands themselves, I, as a 5 wing 4, am not going to understand myself like a type 4 would. I'm not going to have things that make me different as much as a type 4 would. Most of my focus goes into the intellectual side, into the understanding that a type 5 would have. So in the same way, a type 2 wing 1 is going to be more focused on helping the other individuals, and then they're probably going to romanticize it with that type 1. However, the type 1 isn't necessarily just about romanticizing it. In their helping and in their giving, they're going to have a sense of this is the way it should be. This is the way things should work. And when things don't line up in that way, it can be very upsetting for the type 2. A type 2 wing 1 is going to have a strong sense of what is morally correct and how other people should all help each other. Living in a type 2 world, everyone would take care of everyone. And one person would not even have to focus on their own self and be selfish in that sense, but be so focused on helping others. And then when they finish up, there's somebody right behind them that cared so much about them that they took care of all their needs. And that would be the ideal type 2 world. So 2 wing 1 is going to have some kind of philosophy that may parallel with what I just said. However, I'm not a 2 wing 1, so I wouldn't really know. But that's just an idea of the kinds of things they would think and the kinds of things that they would assume would be the best, and the kinds of morals that their type 1 would bring about. And when I say 1 is associated with morals, you'd have to watch my type 1 video. It's more about a sense of perfection. But I did say in a type 2 perfect world, it's for them, that would be a perfect world. I'm saying for a type 2, that's what they want. They want, because when they recognize that their own personal needs are selfish, they find the people they love around them. And so many times the type 2 wants to know that somebody cares about them enough to come right behind them and take care of their needs. Now, I know that kind of puts people in a position with people who have a type 2 relationship that they feel like now they have to go do things for the person when they normally wouldn't. And I wouldn't say go outside of the realm of yourself, but recognize that that's something they truly appreciate. So when you really want someone to feel loved, if they're a type 2, in order to display love to them, it would be a very good thing to take a lot of your time to help somebody. And when I say somebody, that person you're trying to love or appreciate. So that's one thing that I would say for type 2s is very important. Now, like I said, the 2-wing 1's going to work off of that set of morals. They're probably going to romanticize the work they do in some sort of way. But with the 2-wing 3, it's more about success. Now, what I want to clarify now, and I will do a much better job in the next video, the Enneagram 3 video, is that success is subjective. You can't define success unless we're talking about a specific group or society. However, I live in the United States of America, and you can't even generalize it in that form, because I know somebody that's a type 3 that lives nearby that vapes because he thinks it looks successful. Now, I'm not necessarily shaming him at all, but the thing is, I've seen type 3s pick up things that wouldn't look successful to everyone. However, in their social circle or in their group, or maybe the way that they've been raised or whatever, there's a sense of the way things should be, or the way that they should be successful, what success looks like to them. That's very important for a type 3 to recognize, is what it is that success looks like to them. Because if you end up believing that something like vaping is successful, then you might go down the wrong road, depending on which direction you're trying to go. So then for a type 2-wing 3, they're going to be mainly focused on that, helping other individuals and giving their time to others and fulfilling other people's needs. However, they're going to want to be recognized for it a lot more than the 3 would. Now, there is a possibility, just like I said with the 2-wing 1, a possible slant towards that success being something to do with helping others. However, 2-wing 3 may see themselves in a position where they own a big company and they have lots of money, and that money goes towards helping other people and giving to others. That could also be a very 3-wing 2. I can see a 2-wing 3 doing nonprofit organizations, or 2-wing 1s. Really, just type 2s would probably do a lot of nonprofit organizations to help other individuals. However, I'm not saying that if you own a nonprofit organization that you are a type 2. Really, the 2-wing 3 wants to help others, but they want to be recognized for what they do. They want to have those things that show that they helped others. I can see this coming in many forms. Maybe a type 2 goes on a missionary trip and has a series of items that may show the work they did, and it may be pictures, it may be like a something that the tribe gave them for their appreciation or whatever. I'm just saying, the point is, for a type 2 wing 3, they have to have that recognition of success. They need to feel that they are successful, because remember, helping others, being recognized for being helpful and for being successful, is what really makes this type feel loved. And so the 2-wing 1 is going to feel loved when they're helping others, and when they feel that they are recognized for that, or when others help them, that's going to be really amazing for them. However, the 1 part of them is going to feel loved when everything seems right and they wouldn't change a thing. And being a 2 first, I can see that that's when everyone's needs have been met. The 2-wing 1 finds himself in a place where everything is perfect because nobody needs anything. And the moment that something happens that causes them to recognize that somebody needs something. I've seen it before. In a group setting where one person, we're all about to watch a movie or whatever it is, and we're all enjoying each other, and then one person says, "Oh, I forgot about this." And then that person looked like they had so much peace, like so zoned out, enjoying their lives, and then right then, when they realized somebody needed something, jumped up and ran over and said, "I've got it, don't worry." So now that's the 2-wing 1 and the 2-wing 3 type descriptions. I'm going to go on to the MBTI types, starting with dominant extroverted thinking. For dominant extroverted thinking, normally they are very successful and things of the sort. That's because they are commonly associated with type 8 and 3. However, this is not always the case, and we should remember that in Enneagram. But for type 2 ENTJs and ESTJs, they're going to recognize with their perception function, introverted intuition or introverted sensing, what is the best way to handle the situation. Now, they're not going to actually make a judgment on it yet. It's going to be several different ways. For example, a introverted intuitive may recognize that they need to help somebody with this, because if they don't help them with this, then it'll turn into that and that and that and that, and the series of events will make things worse. For the type 2 ESTJ, they're going to be using that introverted sensing, and they may look at somebody and recognize that they do not have everything they need. And how do you define what someone needs? Well, that's that introverted sensing that the ESTJ has, archetyping what is correct. That association in the mind saying this is what people need, this is just their general needs, and if they don't have it, then they're not doing okay. And so they may work very hard to, both types may organize things in the environment to fulfill that need, based off of what they had perceived to be the need. Now for the TI users as a type 2, what I want you to understand is that introverted thinking types are focused on a introverted thinking system. And what I'm saying is they are focused on ensuring that their mind is internally logically consistent. And that's important to recognize. You can't tell an INTP something that contradicts with what they already know, because they have to figure it out and they have to work it out to make sure it's okay. So, and you can kind of see it on their face, they start to calculate. And it's the same way for the ISTP, except it's much more real world versus ideas. The concepts won't bother the ISTP as much. It'll be more about the things they've seen in the real world. Right, so the introverted thinking type is going to recognize what may be needed for an individual for that type 2, where they want to help somebody and make sure that their needs are fulfilled. And so for the type 2 INTP, they're going to use that extrovert intuition, that abstract concept of the world to understand what is needed and what is correct, what should a person have. And then they're going to try to supply that to the person, or maybe even suggest that they rearrange their life just a little bit to get it the way that they understand is the correct form. For the ISTP, it's going to be a little bit different. It's more about real life situations, that extroverted sensing that they're using. They may use that extrovert sensing to build a introvert intuition understanding of the way that things should be. However, they may also just stick with their extrovert sensing and rearrange things in the real world. But the extrovert sensing is going to be more focused on how the real world actually is. And so that's what their basis is going to be. The extrovert sensing function is all about the way that the world is, so that's how they're going to orientate things. A lot of their arguments may have to do with this is the way things are. And I know that introverted sensing users do that, but it'll be in a different format for the ISTP. So now we're going to move into the extroverted feeling users. For them, they're going to be either using introverted sensing or introverted intuition with the ESFJ or ENFJ. So for dominant extroverted feeling type, they're going to be wanting to help people quite a bit. And extroverted feeling is largely associated with type 2. Now really what they're trying to ensure is that the values of the external environment are remaining consistent, just like the extroverted thinking type would, except it's more about logic versus values. What you have to recognize with the extroverted feeling type is they aren't actually helping people all the time. It's the type 2 that is commonly associated with extroverted feeling that tends to help people. And type 2 extroverted feelers are very common in society, but it's important to recognize that a type 2 and extroverted feeling are not the same thing. Extroverted feeling is about ensuring that the values in the outside world are consistent. And so if one person says something that one other person may not agree with, then a extroverted feeler would want to ensure that there is no conflict and that everyone can agree to a certain end statement. And that would be a dream for the extroverted feeling type. For the type 2, it's more about helping others' needs versus keeping those values in check. For extroverted feeling, I just want it to be known that extroverted feeling is more about maintaining the values, making sure they're consistent in the environment, but type 2 is more about actually helping people and ensuring that people's needs are met. So a lot of times what a dominant extroverted feeling type that is a type 2 will do is find the things that someone cares about and really capitalize on those things and make sure those things are taken care of. And when they can recognize that somebody's values lean towards a certain direction, the type 2 dominant extroverted feeler will use that information to make sure that everything is aligned correctly. Now when it comes to introverted feeling, what we find is somebody who has a strong belief in helping others. Introverted feeling is mainly about understanding the personal values and what those personal values are. It's very assumptive in the way that other people may operate. Introverted feeling types are going to look at somebody else and assume that they have the same values. And because of that, a type 2 INFP is going to help others the way they would want to be helped, really putting themselves in someone else's shoes. And for the ISFP, it's going to be the same way, except the difference between them is that their perception functions are going to orientate towards different things. The extroverted intuitive user, the INFP, is going to use the extroverted intuition to perceive some reality that they would love and something that they would love. And it's going to be some world where things would be just right. So a type 2 INFP is going to assume that the other person may have that same want or desire and probably do the things that they know they would love themselves in that other world. So what we have with the extroverted intuitive type constantly trying to find the things that could be changed and made better, what we start to find is that the ways they do that differ depending on what functions they have. For introverted thinking, for the ENTP, it'll be more about the system that it's oriented towards. However, that extroverted feeling is going to be utilized a lot more in the type 2 ENTP, and what will end up happening is they're going to be more focused on what they can see other people can need based off what they believe a person should have with their introverted thinking. And the way that the system of the world works, it's just it's just the way an INTP or an ENTP would go about understanding what someone would need is the same way that this type would do it. However, they're going to have a really good sense of their extroverted feeling. So for the ENFP, however, they're using introverted feeling, so it's going to be a little bit like the dominant FI user when I said that the dominant FI user is all about what I would do in that position. And so an ENFP would say, what would I want in this position? And would constantly try to find the things that they would want. And so it'll be about other people's needs, but based off of their own and what they would want. So that is what an ENFP would be like as a type 2. Now moving on to the dominant introverted intuitives. So for the dominant introverted intuitive users, the dominant NI users, the INFJ and the INTJ, the way that they help other people are going to be much more oriented towards the future. They probably won't meddle a lot with, regular things that are just everyday things unless, they understand the compound effect over time. Mainly the things that they're going to help people with are going to be much more long-term, and that's where their focus is going to be at. They may have an understanding of a world where people are helpful to each other and things of the sort. That would be a very NI thing to do, because of course they're in their own realm, they're in their own world, and so I can see that for a dominant introvert intuitive, they are living a understanding of the real world, but also that real world and what it could be versus what it is. And that's a bit of a 1-2, but however, I know that dominant introverted intuitive types do that already. So what you have to understand is that the INTJ that's a type 2 is going to be using a logical understanding of the outside environment and organizing it the best way they see fit based off of their own personal values to create that change, while the INFJ is going to be organizing the values of the environment based off of what they believe those values should be, or their understanding, which is their TI. So that's the basic idea of the INTJ and INFJ, the dominant NI users. Now for the dominant extroverted sensing type, that is a type 2, they're going to be constantly engaged in whatever is around them. They want to understand what it is that is correct. Now it depends on what type we're talking about. For the ESTP, for example, their understanding of things because of their engagement in reality and their engagement in helping people. A type 2 ESTP walking around would probably see somebody that needs help, and they probably go, oh, I need to help this person. Oh, they need help. I'll do it right now. And they'd probably ditch whatever's going on currently to go help them, because ESTPs are already so spontaneous and looking around and things of the sort. So when it comes to an ESTP, so when it comes to an ESTP in the situation where they're a type 2, it's all about helping other people instead of just being engaged like an ESTP normally would be. Now what we have to understand is that the way they're helping other people, they have extroverted feelings, so it's about maintaining those external values around them, but it's based off their understanding of what those values should be, or that introverted thinking understanding of the world or the way things should be structured in order to maintain those values. And so they're more about the structure than they are the actual way they come across. So for a ESTP, they may not be so good in a situation when it comes to the way they're coming off to somebody, but they may be much, much better in what they need to do for the person. And so it may make up for it. But I have also seen as ESTPs that do really good with different individuals. So a type 2 ESTP, I can only imagine they'd probably be really, really good with understanding what is the best thing to do in a certain situation. Now for the dominant introvert sensing types, it's all about what they believe is the correct thing to do for the other person, considering it's a type 2. The dominant introvert sensing type wants to take that perception that they have about what reality is and what it should be, and they want to use that extrovert intuition to decide what needs to be changed in the environment to make it ideal. And the ideal environment is exactly what an introverted sensing type would do. That SI is the ideal environment. It's that association they have with what is correct and what they need to accomplish a certain task. For the ISTJ, it is more about accomplishing the goals, and for the ISFJ, it's more about accomplishing harmony in between individuals. However, what we have to understand is that for a type 2 ISFJ, it's more about fulfilling those needs. And so what are the needs? Well, my perception tells me that these needs are A, B, C, and D because of what I'm oriented towards when it comes to those values. Now, for the ISTJ, it's more about how they would personally feel, and they take that FI and what it is that they would appreciate, what they would like, and what their needs would be, and then they'd say, I think that this person would like what I like. That's what FI naturally does. It says, you know, I can naturally assume that this person will feel this way or would feel this way in this situation because that's how I would feel. Now the introverted feeling type does that, but so this ISTJ is going to create that real change based off of what they would personally desire. That means that the ISTJ in this current situation would be very good with their introverted feeling, because they have to understand what it is that they would want in order to help others with what those people would want. So that covers the entirety of the Enneagram 2 video. I hope I provided lots of good information for you guys. I'm trying really hard to make these videos as crammed full of information that I can, so that you guys have a better understanding of Enneagram 2. And man, I am learning so much on this journey of making these videos. I have learned an incredible amount, and I have a lot of video ideas for Enneagram in the future, and you guys are gonna love it. I know a lot of you are having trouble finding your 3 Enneagram types. For me, it's the 5, 2, and the 1. But MBTV is all about fixing those problems, so pretty soon we're gonna have a solution to your issues. Thank you so much for watching this video. Have an amazing day, and go check out our other stuff. Ciao.